Hi, it's Mal from the Money Study, back again to bring you another episode of the Ultimate PSS Education Series. And this particular episode is number 9 in the series, and it's all about your FAS, or better known as your final average salary. And so we're going to go through exactly what they use in the salary arrangement for your end benefit in the PSS. Before we kick off, there's the disclaimer: facts and figures, information only, not advice. So, in a previous episode, we talked about your super salary and how that was constructed. But the PSS don't actually use your super salary in the formula. What they do use is your final average salary. And it is an average indeed of your super salary. So it's not the average of your final 3 years or whatever you're doing. It's basically the average of your super salary. So if your super salary can't go backwards, then in theory, when they look at this average of the last 3 years, it really should be your best 3 years. So people get worried about dropping back in the last few years or so and say, oh gee, if I drop a level, I can't handle this stress, then I'm going to muck up my PSS formula. No, because your super salary can't go backwards. The average is going to be the average of those higher locked in super salary amounts, and that's what they're going to use in your formula. So don't get too stressed about making changes in those last 3 years. As I said before, we're going to talk about part-time shortly. But even with part-time, they use the full-time salary equivalent when they come to use the equation. So if you went part-time the last few years, no, they will still multiply it by that higher full-time super salary. Okay. So pretty good situation here. That doesn't really matter what you do going forward. We're going to lock in this higher arrangement. And because the super salary can't go backwards unless you leave, this is all good news. So from our previous example, we saw that our member over the last 3 years had a super salary of 80,000, 81,600 with that AWOTI adjustment, and 83,232 the year after that. So if you look at the average of those last 3 years for that person, literally what it came down to is that we just add them all up, divide it by 3 to get the average, and therefore this person's got a final average salary of 81,610. So when they come to use the formula for your PSS, they're not going to use that 83,232. They're going to use the average, which generally speaking, pretty close to the second last year. They're pretty close to that second last year. On your statement, you can see on page 2 where your final salary is up to, what your final average salary is up to. You can see your super salaries from 2 years ago, 1 year ago, your current salary. Remembering that, of course, this is all taken on your birthday. So if you're reading a June statement, but your birthday is in July, you're actually looking at the salary from the July of the previous year. And if you've had if they've had a pay rise since that July, it's not going to show up on your statement. People get very worried, think, payroll have got it wrong, PSS have got it wrong, everybody's got it wrong. No, remembering that your statement is showing you what your salary was as of your birthday. This is where it's nice if you've got a birthday in June, because the statement's, dare I say, far more accurate. But someone in birthday in July, it's really going to be a year out as far as what it's actually showing you relating to your super salary. But on there, just make sure it's right. Please make sure it's right. Make sure those salaries are correct. Go back in time, check, make sure that those really are the numbers. I see it quite regularly where they just have not updated the super salary and things are incorrect. So please check, make sure your super salary, make sure your average is all up to date, because everything in the PSS, as far as your end benefit is concerned, is hinged upon this thing called your final average salary. Now, what we are trying to do, of course, is if we're trying to work out what we're going to get at retirement, we need to find out what we believe our final average salary is going to be when we retire. So we want to, be comparing apples with apples here. We want to find out what we're going to be earning in the future. So then when we start calculating our pension, we can sort of see, what are we living on in the pension compared to what are we living on that salary in the future. So we've got to determine what is our final average salary at retirement. Now, coming back to the example that we've been using in this series up to so far, the person that we were looking at had 13 and a half years to go, and they were going to retire at 60. And so we need to try and figure out what would their salary be in 13 and a half years' time. Now, of course, there's a big fudge factor in this, because we really are not going to know exactly, that's for sure, what your salary is going to be in 13 and a half years' time. That's obvious. That's obvious. But all we can really do is say, a comparison. If we expect it to go up by 2% per annum, then, okay, what's that salary going to be? What would you get by working? What would I get from my pension? So this is the whole idea. So even though the number may not be 100% accurate when we're trying to work out our future salary, it's the comparison to what we believe that super salary is going to be compared to what it's going to mean for our PSS. Now, so how do we find out? I've just literally using a compound calculator here. And this compound calculator I got from the Money Smart website. You can see the address there at the top of the page. The Money Smart website is a sensational website, actually. It's run by ASIC, because it's run by a government. A lot of information there that's all free. No, you don't get all the pop-ups and things when you start using calculators and things from commercial websites and so forth. So with that, all we're going to try and do is say, okay, I've got a salary. It will compound, because if I get a 2% increase this year, then if I get a 2% the year after, it's compounding on that previous compounded salary. So we're using a compound calculator. And so we put in there the salary, the average salary that person had, and from their statement, it was 117,000. We're going to put in there 14 years. Now, even though this person's got 13 and a half years to go, we're generally speaking not going to retire until a birthday, because that's when they increase the salary. Now, you can actually retire on your birthday, because your payroll will indeed inform PSS what was your salary on your exit date. But if we get to a birthday, 13 and a half years is in fact 14 birthdays. So we're putting in there 14 years to compound. Now, I've got a pretty ridiculously low compound rate there of 1.7%. Now, I must admit, when I did this slide years ago, that was pretty, it was certainly wage growth was fairly abysmal in the public service. Now, of course, in the last year or so, things have started to pick up. Longer term, you might want to use 2%. Look, it's as I say, it's really not critical. I'd rather be pessimistic than optimistic, I suppose. And so using a smaller number just gives you a bit of an idea. Are you on track to get that sort of income? But as I say, it's really coming down to, what are we expecting our actual salary to be? So in this particular case, we've used the calculator, 14 birthdays, compounding in this particular example of 1.7%. And you can see there that the final average salary has grown to that bottom right-hand corner there to 148,597. So anytime we start then going forward doing calculations on our retirement, that's the salary we need to compare it to. We're going to compare it to, the salary that we've determined you're going to be getting in those last 3 years or so. So this person is going to get a salary of 148. We can use an income tax calculator, and we'll be talking about this when we talk about tax, to find out what you'd be getting by working, minus all your contributions and other deductions. And then we compare what we'd get from a net situation from our pension, just to give us an idea of, are we going to be in a lot of pain by retiring, or are we just going to be similar, or are we going to be absolutely doing cartwheels because we're going to be walking away with more money in retirement? But this compound calculator will help us just to determine what is our final average salary at this time when we're looking towards retirement. So let's come back to our worksheet. And what we're going to do here is now add that number to row 8. So we use the compound calculator to determine what we believe our final average salary will be at the age we have chosen to look at our retirement. and we literally just take that number from the compound calculator, stick it into row 8, and we're now ready to start continuing on down our calculation going forward. So row 8 is our final average salary taken from the compound calculator at the age we have decided we're going to retire. And again, if you're going to do multiple calculations, just print off a few blank ones and change obviously the years to retirement and change the years for our compounder to get that different salary finally at retirement. So we're starting to get headway with our salary. And we'll talk more about this in upcoming sessions. Thanks for joining me on this one.